Hi, everyone. We're live from Simon and Schuster today. We're talking about this month's book club favorites pick, Mrs. Everything. I'm Hannah. I am the moderator here at Book Club Favorites. And today we have with us Jennifer Weiner, author of this month's book. Yes, very exciting. And we also have Dana and Ariel, our marketing and publicity contacts for the book, and they are great. They're going to lead the discussion. I also just want to mention that we have a giveaway. So in order to enter into the giveaway, ask a question in the comments, and you will enter into a chance to win an ebook copy of Mrs. Everything, Jen's new book, Big Summer, and next month's book, Ask Again Yes. All very exciting. So now I'm going to throw it over and have you guys give a little summary of the book and jump right in. Jen, do you want to start?
Sure. Mrs. Everything is the story of two sisters named Jo and Bethy, and it follows them over the course of their lives through 70 years of American history, women's history. We meet them as girls, we see them as teenagers, as young women, we watch them start families, and we watch them move through the world as the world changes and as they change with it.
So, Jen, this is sort of what we were calling like your biggest scope book yet. It's a huge, expansive novel that covers a massive amount of time and characters that grow from young women through their entire lifetime. So why did you decide to write this book, and why this book now?
That's a great question. And you're absolutely right. Mrs. Everything was very much my swing for the fences book. I had been wanting to write a historical novel for a really long time. I had always had it in my head that I was going to try to do something like one of my favorite books, which is Susan Isaac's Almost Paradise, where you meet these two people when they're a young couple, and then you see their parents, and then you see their grandparents, and you see all of the things the forces that shaped them and made them who they are. I always wanted to do something like that. And I knew that I wanted to talk about women specifically, about feminism, about women in America. And the project started to feel a lot more urgent in the wake of the 2016 election, where I think a lot of creative people were sort of having this gut check moment of like, what am I supposed to be doing now? Like, what does this moment require of me? So that's why this book now.
I love it. Well, there's a lot kind of that went into the writing of the book, but can you talk about a little bit of the inspiration? You know, like obviously that was like why you started, but how did it all start to take place? How did it start to form in your head?
Well, so that was the why, and then we get to the who. And so I'd always wanted to do a version of my mother's story. Like, we all have stories that we tell ourselves about our parents, and when we're little kids, it's like they're superheroes. Basically, they can do no wrong. They're all powerful. They control, your diet and your television schedule. So basically they have all the power. And then as you get older, like I have a teenage daughter now, so I've learned that I know absolutely nothing and have no power at all. And then they get older, and then they realize like, oh yeah, she does know a couple things maybe. So my mom in particular had an interesting journey, I'll say. She went to the University of Michigan. She was born in Detroit, grew up in Detroit, and then her parents moved to the burbs later. Went to the University of Michigan, met my dad, got married. My dad enlisted in the Army. They moved to DeRidder, Louisiana, where I was born and my sister was born. And then they moved to Connecticut, and that's where I grew up. Then my parents got divorced in the 80s. And 10 years after that, my mom fell in love with a woman. Shocker. And, all of us, like I was in my 20s at the time, and I was just like, Fran, what the hell? Like, what is even going on here? Like, I'm the one who's supposed to be exploring her sexuality. If anyone in this family is going to be doing it, it's me. So I was, of course I had questions, and my questions were, like, is this what she always wanted, but it just wasn't possible because of the way the world was then? And I'm not sure that's my mother's story, because she just won't talk about it with me. Like every holiday, like we have the meal, we do the dishes, we go sit in the living room, and then we interrogate my mother about her sexuality. I don't know how it is in your family, but that's what we do. And she won't give us any answers. And so I had to make it up. And so in Mrs. Everything, we meet Jo Kaufman, who is this sort of, she doesn't fit in. She likes sports. She's sort of a tomboy. She falls in love with her best friend, which is super awkward because her best friend's a girl. And she always knows that this is who she really is, and this is what she really wants. But she also knows that that's something that the world is really not going to encourage or endorse. And
Right.
so she ends up leading a very different life than the life that she had hoped for, the life that she wanted, the life that felt authentic to her. And then she has a sister who is very much the good girl who goes off the rails in the 60s and ends up leading a life also very different than what she had imagined. And so they sort of switch paths a little bit in the middle of the book, where like the good girl isn't so good and the sort of off the beaten path girl ends up in the suburbs, you know, with the 2.5 kids and the picket fence. So, you know, a lot to talk about in terms of the forces that shaped that generation, and then the question of my generation and my daughter's generation, and all you young people. It's like, okay, have things gotten better? Have things gotten all the way better? Like, are we free? Are we equal? Or is there still ground to cover?
100%.
That's amazing. I love the thought that you used this as an opportunity to sort of like create an answer for how this might have happened in your own life, but also that you sort of encapsulated women's stories too, just not just Fran's story and your exploration, but like the sort of like womanhood journey.
Whenever people ask me, because they're like, you know, okay, so you just like took a story that you knew and you just put it in there. And that's not the way it works. Like usually you'll have like the raw material of a character in your life, a friend, a mother, a sister, and you'll be like, oh, that's a jumping off point. But by the time it ends up in a published novel, it has been through many, many revisions and many different iterations. And there's like, for this book, there's hundreds of pages that got left on the cutting room floor. So
bonus material.
Yeah. Available now. Price. No, but I mean, I wanted to, I always tell people that like just cribbing from real life is never good enough, because, you know, it's never going to be as big or as dramatic or as important or as meaningful or as neat as you need things to be in a book. And so it's like the pieces of my mother's life that I sort of borrowed, everything either got imagined or it got amped up or it got made sadder or it got made harder, because that's what you have to do when you're writing fiction.
Totally. So along those lines, you know, because this is loosely based and then completely fictionalized, what other research did you do? Because I mean, you cover a lot of history, including historical moments and you know, events.
Yeah. So God bless the internet. I really do not know how writers did things before it, but I went back and I pretended that I was living in the 1960s, and okay, what would I read? And then I went back and basically got subscriptions to like the Detroit Free Press and Life magazine and Time magazine and the Saturday Evening Post and 17 and Mademoiselle and all of the magazines that would have been in the house at the time, and really tried to immerse myself in that world in terms of what they were reading, what they were buying, what they were watching, what they were eating. Lots and lots of reading. And then I did a trip to Detroit with my mom and my daughter Phoebe, who took notes, and we schlepped all around Southfield and all the suburbs of Detroit, and went to the places that my mom went. And I saw her school and her synagogue and her library and all those places. So lots of reading, lots of sort of in-person research. I asked my mom a million questions, and, you know, for like the first couple months, she's like, what is this for? And I'm like, oh, you know, just something I'm working on. She's like, what is this about? And I'm like, you know, like it took me a while to like tell her that like, okay, here's what's going on. and thank God she was fine with it. I mean, whew, knock on wood.
Yeah. Tell everybody about how you first like gave her the book, because I think this is a funny story.
How did I first give her the book? My God, I don't even know if I remember. Tell me.
Okay. I think the story goes that I think I heard it on tour a lot, right? That she came over for Rosh Hashanah.
Yes. Okay. So yeah, it was like the 20-year anniversary. So it was when I gave her Good in Bed, like these many years ago, my very first book, which included a character who was, again, loosely based on her, a mom who fell in love with a woman and joined a lesbian softball team called 9 Women Out. And I gave my mother the book and I'm like, okay, look, I did not write this to hurt you or embarrass you or cause you any pain. And if there's any problems, just let me know and I will change it, just not the name of the softball team, because everybody really likes that. And I had this like god awful experience of sitting in my living room, listening to my mother, like flipping the pages, like flip, flip, flip. And then she'd scream, Jenny, God damn it. And I would know that she'd either gotten to like a sex scene or like something that involved the mother character. So with Mrs. Everything, my mom came to my house on, I think it was Rosh Hashanah. And I tried to time it really carefully to like, because I'm like, okay, so what time are you guys leaving? What time do you need to be on the road? And I like gave it to her like an hour before that. And I'm like, okay, the first sex scene's on page 84. So there's no way she can pages. So, then they get in the car and the phone rings and I pick it up and my mother goes, Jenny, God damn it. And I'm like, oh. I guess she found the sex scene. But it was the same kind of thing. It's like I didn't write this to hurt you, didn't write this to embarrass you, and I gave her lots of plausible deniability. But my mom is great. She's like, I'll just tell everyone it's just fiction.
Yeah, which it is. True. It is. So actually, and I also want to say for people who have just joined, we are doing a giveaway and you can enter by commenting or asking a question and there's, what are we giving away? Ebook copy of Mrs. Everything, ebook copy of Big Summer, and the next pick, which is Ask Again, Yes. Okay, great. But I also wanted to mention it was a Barnes & Noble book club pick. So that was really fun because book clubs from Barnes & Noble all over the country got to read it. And didn't Fran crash one?
She infiltrated. She showed up at the Barnes and Noble in Farmington, Connecticut, and did not tell anybody who she was. And I'm like, so what did they say? And she's like, yeah, one person liked it. One had some complaints. I'm like, and you didn't say anything? And she's like, nope. So
classic Fran.
Right? But it's like, I was just like thinking like, shit, what if one of my kids becomes a writer? Like, what am I going to do? Run.
Yeah. It's like what you want your kids to become the opposite of what you have done or something like that.
Well, I always joke that like you have to have a really unhappy childhood to be a writer, and my kids will not be writers because I'm giving them wonderful childhoods, but who knows? I mean, you can't tell. You never can tell.
Never know.
So I have another question. Mm-hmm. So Mrs. Everything, even though it's historical and a little bit of a departure from what you've built your long and wonderful career on, it really, at the heart of it, it explores kind of something that you always come back to, which is relationships between women and the sort of complicated nature of those relationships. So I wonder if you could talk about that a little bit.
Well, I mean, maybe it's because I'm a sister. I have a sister who's 15 months younger than I am. Maybe it's because my mom has a sister and I've watched that dynamic play out of sort of these two girls and this sort of very like demanding perfectionist mother who I think was very hard on both of them in different ways. And now I'm the mother of two daughters. It's like I can't get away from this whole like two sister thing. And maybe it's just like men are not very emotionally forthcoming. Like they're just, it's like, how you doing? Fine. Doing all right with this whole like pandemic thing? Sure. Like, so nothing but no. It's like, I mean, I'm sure there's like emotions and like deep thoughts and feelings going on in there somewhere, but it just feels to me like it's easier to get into a woman's head and skin and shoes and all of that. And also I think like, women's stories are always underdog stories in certain ways, because I think like, as much as Beyonce would have us believe that girls run the world, like we're still getting there. And I think that there are still obstacles and challenges and things that need to be overcome. And that kind of conflict makes for a good story.
Totally. And one of the things that we're talking about, you know, female friendships are obviously, you know, like Dana said, such a big part of your book, but this kind of is a very lovely opportunity to segue into Big Summer.
Big Summer, yes.
Which, I mean, just tell us a little bit about them. We can like jump back to Mrs. Everything questions, but like, but no spoilers, but you know.
Yeah, no spoilers. Okay, so Mrs. Everything was this, like, as we've been saying, it was a big, long, exhaustive look at 70 years of history. It had this very intricate timeline. It was set in places that I hadn't lived. It was a lot of heavy lifting. And after I finished it, I wanted to write something that was going to be a lot lighter and more fun and would take place over like a 3-day weekend on Cape Cod, was the joke that I told my husband. And, you know, and so Big Summer is indeed, it is a little bit more, you know, kind of fast paced and lighthearted, and it does take place over a shorter period of time. But it turns out that what that book wanted to be about was this relationship between these two friends who are, one of them is sort of the golden girl, the queen bee, and the other one is her sort of plus size, insecure best friend who would do anything to sort of be like Drew and be in her circle and bask in her glow. So I ended up, again, going back to a story about two women and a story about a friendship, and also with Big Summer, a story about social media and a story about the internet and a story about influencer culture and the gap between the life that we live and the life that we perform, which, you know, it was interesting. I've been reading a lot of like writers talking about their craft, and somebody, I can't even remember who at this point, said that like, it's not a question of writing a book. It's a question of like discovering the book that is out there and the story that is waiting for you to tell it. And so with Big Summer, I think the story that was waiting for me to tell it was about these two girls and their difficult friendship, but also the way that the internet helps and hurts women of that generation. It gives them connection, it gives them community, but it also, there are drawbacks to that kind of living out loud.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things about reading Big Summer was, and absolutely no spoilers, but something massively surprising happens in the middle of the book. And in one of the conversations you and I had, Jen, you told me that it surprised you when it happened too.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks to what you were just saying, that like the story is there and you're sort of discovering it or, you know, finding it as you go along. But I loved the thought that you were sitting there writing and going like
honest to God, that when I realized like there's a character who's connected to things in a way that you don't necessarily see, you don't see the connection coming, I hope. And I think that like all of the building blocks of any novel, they're all like in there kind of tumbling around. So there's like a real life story that sort of formed the backbone of Big Summer, and that was in there. And then lots of things I knew about the Cape were in there, and lots of things I knew about friendships, and probably every mystery I've ever read is like tumbling around in there too. So it all kind of came together in ways that did really surprise me, and I hope are going to surprise my readers too.
It's so fun because, you know, everyone right now, like, I mean, we didn't even talk about this. Like, Jen, you're in your cloffice, which is your closet office. Yeah. Hannah, you're at home. Dana, you're at home. I'm in my parents' house with my husband and my daughter. Like, what's going on? I'm a teenager again. So we're all in this weird place right now, and everyone just wants to escape. So it's really exciting. Like, yes, historical fiction is great. And like, it's really nice to read like a 700-page book if you have the attention span, God bless you. But I mean, it's so nice that we have Big Summer to look forward to and like escape with a little bit. And it's only on sale in like 8 days. So
I know. I'm glad we were able to like move that publication up and give people hopefully that escape sooner rather than later. I mean, sometimes things work out, and sometimes I guess like the universe has a plan. And if there was a universe plan for this, it was that like, you know, I've been telling people that like all of the words that normally make me cringe a little when I read them about my work, like frothy, fizzy, fast-paced, lighthearted, I'm like, I am steering right into that skid. Like I am going to embrace every single one of those things. And if it's just like an escapist romp, that's great. And who knew? I mean, I knew there was going to be an election, obviously. I knew there was going to be all of that noise.
Right.
But, I mean, as our president keeps saying, like, who could have seen this coming? Nobody saw this coming. And I mean, hopefully maybe he should have seen it coming a little better than, me in my closet in Philadelphia. But I'm very glad that Big Summer can maybe give people a little bit of like a breath, like a chance to take a breath.
Yeah.
I think that Mrs. Everything and Big Summer are like a perfect 1-2 punch right now. Like you have like 8 days to read Mrs. Everything and go back to a time when we were allowed outside the house and there were other problems to think about, and Jell-O was on the shopping list, and and then you have like you can relive 70 years of history, and then as soon as that's done, Big Summer will be out and it will take you right to the beach.
That is my hope. I mean, listen, for somebody who was like scrolling through her photos on her iPhone and found the picture of the last time she was at the hairdresser and just stared at it longingly for several moments, like I think everyone needs a little break right now. And I so hope that my books can be that break for readers.
Well, it seems like it is. We're getting a lot of really great audience feedback right now. So everyone is saying how much they loved Mrs. Everything and how much they're looking forward to Big Summer. And we also have a ton of questions. I'm going to jump in and start to throw some out there. We have a question from Dana who wants to know about Mrs. Everything and which
name.
Wants to know if one sister was easier to write about than another sister.
That's a great question. I mean, they both had their challenges. I would say that Jo started off being the easier one to write because she was loosely based on somebody that I knew pretty intimately. And I think that I always have an affinity for the outsider girl, the girl who's not accepted, the girl who's maybe not so popular, the girl who maybe doesn't have a ton of friends. Like that girl feels familiar to me. And Bethy, who initially is like, she's so pretty and she's so cute and, just has this like very winning personality and everybody loves her and she's so great. She was tougher. Like she was harder to get in. And I had to really work hard to find like, to write her in a way that wasn't mocking or dismissive, which I think was maybe like my first impulse, like, the good girl, she's the good sister. But, and I think a little bit what helped me find my way into Bethy was my own daughter, Phoebe. I have 2 daughters, like I mentioned before, and one of them is like super grumpy and sarcastic. I don't know where she gets it, but she is. And then I have this 12-year-old who is just like a cheery little ray of sunshine. She is just like the happiest, like everything is great and everything is wonderful. And she likes everything and she just wants to chat with you. And she's like, I don't know where she came from and I don't know how she happened, but thinking about Phoebe was what let me get into Bethy because I know Phoebe really well. And I know that it's not all like smiles and sunshine deep down when you get in there. But, definitely, I think that Jo was easier at first. Dana.
Can I like double in on that? Because we didn't talk about Jo and Bethy and where their names came from.
Great. Ooh. So, when people started reading the book, like the first questions that I got is like, there's sisters and Little Women named Jo and Bethy too. I'm like, yes, I know that. That's a reference. Like, Little Women is one of my favorite books. And I read it when I was a kid and I read it when I was a teenager and I read it when I was a young woman and I read it when I became a mother. And Jo, I think there are very few women who become writers who don't have a soft spot for Jo March in their hearts. Jo who just wants to write and just wants to sell her stories and support her family. And this jerky German guy comes along and tells her that her work is crap. And then she stops writing and marries him and opens a boys' school. I'm still mad. But, I wanted to write a Jo whose ambitions were acceptable, who lived in a world where she could have become a commercial writer. She could have written pulp fiction. She could have written pulp lesbian stories if she wanted to. But, the fact that she's in love with this woman, and the woman is her girlfriend is not willing to sort of make that leap with her, that's the obstacle that she has to overcome. And then Bethy in Little Women, she is the sister, spoiler alert, who dies. And she dies as a teenager, and in this very beautiful, poignant, heart-wrenching way. And she's the good girl of that family. She's the quiet musical March sister. I wanted to write a Bethy who survived. And I wanted to talk about what happens even to good girls in the world. I wanted to talk about what happens, the damage that very few women escape, no matter which side of the, popular, unpopular, fitting in, not fitting in divide they fall on. So that's where the names came from.
Thanks.
Awesome. We also have a question from Lucille about, are you writing anything else right now that you can talk about?
Oh, Lucille, that is a good question. Okay, so what I'm working on now, and just imagine the quotes around working, because I'm trying to work, but I think like everybody else, I'm struggling with focus and attention span, and the fact that my home/workplace is now like everybody's workplace and school and gym and laundromat and 24-hour diner. And I've amused myself, to digress very briefly, I've started pretending that my home is a bed and breakfast, and I'm acting like I am running the bed and breakfast. So I leave notes on my kids' beds, like, your room has been cleaned by Mom. If you would like your towels washed, please go wash them yourselves. But to our environment. And I had to strip Lucy's bed today. So I put a little note on her door, say, sorry, we're cleaning your room right now. She's so mad. She's like, I take a nap in the afternoon. I'm like, well, that must be nice. Right? I know.
Sorry, I had to close my jaw.
This digital school she has going. But so to answer the question, I'm working on the third book of the Littlest Bigfoot trilogy. I'm finally going to finish that. And I had an idea for a Halloween short story. I write scary, weird Halloween short stories every year, and I had an idea for one. So I'm going to work on that too.
Exciting.
Yeah.
We have a question about your writing routine.
Okay.
And you have a daily writing routine.
Mm-hmm.
That's from Michelle.
Okay, so my writing routine, well, I'll do pre-Rona and now. So before this all happened, I would get up in the morning and I walk the dog with my husband. And if I'm having a plot issue, or I don't know if this character would really do whatever, we will talk things through, because he's also a writer and he's an editor, and he's really a good person to talk stories with. And then I would usually go do some kind of fitness, like yoga or boot camp or bar or something. And then sometimes I'd have coffee with friends, or have lunch with friends, or go for a walk with friends, and see other people and
Other people.
I know. You guys also Saturday Night Live with Pete Davidson, where he's like, I miss my friends and they miss me too. And everybody's waving. And but yeah, I'm gonna be doing Zoom yoga with some buddies when this is all over. This is 50-year-old woman hang out. It's very sad. Okay, so I would, I'd come home around lunchtime ish, and usually most days from 1 to 4, that would be my work. That would be when I would be at my desk in my office working on whatever I was working on. And now, obviously, I'm no longer going out to fitness classes, although I'm still trying to do something every day. I'm doing a lot more housework, which really blows. I mean, I'm giving my housekeeper a big raise when she comes back, because washing floors, man, and all of this laundry. I'm like, can't you just I don't know, wear that again or something? I don't know. So, but I'm trying to write every afternoon. I'm trying to put in a couple hours, or at least an hour, and I practice the piano every day. So I'm trying to do that, because it's I think routines are really important and rituals are really important. So I'm trying, man, but and I think this is kind of universal. I feel like everybody's struggling a little bit right now with like this new normal. So yeah.
And you also have a lot of writing assignments. Sorry.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks for that.
Sorry.
All good.
That's actually the next, I think we have time for one more question. And that's actually the biggest one we've gotten is like, what are you reading? Like, what was the last read that you read? People want to know what is on your shelf at the moment.
Okay. Well, let's see. So I loved Laura Zigman's book, Separation Anxiety, which is about a woman who is struggling in her life and with her marriage, with her parenting, with her job, with her creativity. And to break through the misery, she starts wearing her dog in a baby sling, which sounds completely bonkers, but it works and it's amazing. So I read that. I did and am doing still a very, very immersive deep dive into Diana Gabaldon's Outlander books, which I'd never read before because I was just like, time traveling nurse in Scotland, like none of that sounds like it's for me. But it turns out it's all for me. And it's like they're incredibly detailed. The research is amazing. The historical, the settings, like it's just try. Just even if you think you don't read like romance or science fiction or hybrids of romance and science fiction, like I highly recommend those books. And then I went back to the Little House on the Prairie books, weirdly, because what had happened was, as my kids say, even before the virus, I needed a detail about sod houses. And so I went back to On the Banks of Plum Creek, where the Ingalls family lives briefly in a sod house. And then I just like kept going. So I was reading The Long Winter, where they are basically, the Ingalls family is trapped indoors and they're running out of food during the blizzards in North Dakota in 1880 and 1881. And they're quarantined more or less. They can't see other people. They're not supposed to leave. It's dangerous out there. And I'm like, well, okay, people have been through stuff like this before and they made it. And at least we're not down to like burning hay and surviving on a loaf of whole wheat bread every day. So, that's good.
Yeah.
And the other thing I'm reading is Gardening for Dummies, because I decided to try to grow vegetables from seeds, which I wish, like, I'll post some pictures today. Like if you go on my social media, like I ate a butternut squash and I took the seeds from the butternut squash and I planted them. And now I have little butternut squash plants. I mean, circle of life, you guys. It's amazing. Like
it's real.
It's real. It is.
I feel like this is a great moment to share with everybody. If you're not following Jen on social media, do it, because you're going to get a glimpse into her very enjoyable life, including planting and books and her very delightful daughters.
Yes.
Oh yeah, baking tutorials.
Yes, Ariel, I saw you made challah. It looked great.
Solid first attempt. So we'll continue. I ordered a pound of yeast for $30.
Wow. So you're getting gouged, man. That's yeast gouging. That's
I gotta call the cops.
But yes, I bake challah on Friday afternoons and I do book clubs on Wednesday evenings at 7:30. We're going through my backlist and it's really kind of delightful because I have like dragooned my daughters and made them help me. So they're now like tech support and they're my videographers and my makeup artists and they'll take questions. And at this point, I think Phoebe is more popular than I am. Like nobody cares about me anymore. They just want to talk to her. And I don't blame them because she's delightful. And I'm like an old hag and she's like this perky little 12-year-old. So Phoebe.
Oh my goodness.
Shout out to Phoebe. Everyone do yourself a favor and tune in. Jen, you're getting me through the quarantine too. So
I hope so. I'm trying, man.
I just posted all of the links below for anyone who's interested. So you can check out the social media links in the comments. And I think we're out of time, unfortunately.
Wait.
Yes.
Okay, call on me. I just want to say Big Summer is out next week. But Jen is going to be doing, speaking of social media, a ton of virtual events. So Jen's going to talk to Tattered Cover and Midtown Scholar, and you can order a signed book plate from Midtown Scholar. So Jen has already signed them, and you can order a book with that in it. So it's like meeting Jen on tour, basically. reading with Robin. She's going to visit five JCCs at once. She's going to do stuff on YouTube. So just like hang tight to Jen's social and join us, because it's going to be a lot of laughs with Jen.
And I'm also doing giveaways. If you show up on my Facebook or my Instagram, every day I am giving away a signed copy of Big Summer and some Big Summer swag and a $100 gift card that you have to spend on yourself. I'm all about self-care. So you follow, friend, enter, hopefully you'll win. I'm so grateful to all of my readers and anybody who's like, come on this journey with me. So thank you guys for being here today and always, and thank you for reading my books.
Well, Thank you for joining us. This was great. I know that the Book Club Favorites audience loves having authors, and they absolutely loved having you on. So thank you.
Awesome.
I'm getting a lot of that right now, a lot of thank yous. And then the last thing I want to say is a sweepstakes reminder. So just to everyone who's here or everyone who watches later, post a question in the comments below to enter into a giveaway to win Mrs. Everything and Big Summer on ebook, as well as next month's pick, which is Ask Again Yes. So next month's discussion book will be Ask Again Yes by Mary Beth Keane, and that date is May 26th. So we look forward to seeing you. Check out the links for Mrs. Everything and Big Summer. Oh, there it is. They're in the intro copy. And be sure to join our Book Club Favorites Facebook group for continued discussion. So thank you again. Thank you so much, everyone. This was great.
Thanks, Jen.
Everyone. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.